Hi everyone, my name is Richard and welcome to our artifact presentation. Our group, consisting of myself, Alina, and Johan, will be presenting to you our artifact during this video. For our artifact, we decided to create a blog to present our topic, which is broadly language and power and how learning a language can affect one's social power. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we chose this artifact. We chose to create a blog page for many reasons that became apparent to us during this course. First and foremost, we believe that our online blog will reflect the learning techniques that other online courses do, such as ADHE 412. We also believe that this coincides with our units on online learning, as individuals will be able to access our blog from anywhere in the world and learn about language and power. Lastly, we believe that by creating a blog, that our content will remain relevant and active long after we've completed this course, and therefore create a lifelong learning opportunity for anyone who's interested. Now, diving right into our topic, we looked at how learning a different language, in particular through adult education, affects one's social power or ability to move up the social ladder. For my portion of the blog, I looked at how power is created and disseminated through institutions, which applies not only to learning a language, but really any subject matter at all. I also looked at how the 4 C's of learning, which are content, communication, cognition, and culture, affect teaching and learning a second language. Moreover, for the sake of this presentation, I will be defining power as the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Now, the course of events also applies to the events in one's life as well. I discovered that institutions such as universities create power through their discourse and further propagate this power through their student body and eventually graduates. Additionally, it has become evident that higher education leads to more social power, which in turn leads to more opportunities, such as employment. In fact, the desire to attain more employable skills is often a reason given by Spanish-speaking English language learners in the United States as a driver for entering adult education programs. Moving forward, looking at the 4 C's of learning, which again are content, cognition, communication, and culture, which are available on my blog post in a graphic, make up a teaching framework that aims to take into account the many social factors that facilitate learning for students and English language learners in particular. Lastly, frameworks that use the 4 C's approach aim to steer education away from transmission-based teaching models. In closing, it is important to note the interconnectedness of social power and education, which in turn is connected to adult education in both formal and non-formal settings. In addition, adult education not only increases one's social power, but also their desire to pursue more education, and therefore power. This is evident by adult education enrollment rates of educated versus uneducated people in Canada, which show a higher percentage of post-secondary educated people enrolling in adult education programs. Hopefully, with advances in technology and the creation of online learning, in the form of massive open online courses, enrollment of adult learners from uneducated groups will increase, thus further increasing their social power. I'll now hand the mic off to Johan, who will be talking to you about access to education, which was his research topic for this project. Thanks.
I researched and wrote about access to education, the power of learning another language, and how they are related to adult education in regard to Freire's approach. So to summarize my findings in point form, as more people are educated, the higher chance they find ways to overcome poverty and other lowly conditions and become productive citizens of the country. In third world countries, language and literacy is the most rudimentary education people need. For many people around the world, one of the most rudimentary purposes of education is learning another language, and learning language creates power, enable them with various abilities. Freire bases his idea of adult education and language lessons on learners' cultural and personal experiences. Nina Wallerstein says, teachers and students typically come from different cultural, linguistic, and economic backgrounds, and teachers must make special effort to get to know the students better. They should learn about times of cultural disruption by asking students either in simplified English or through an interpreter to describe their immigration to the host country and to compare their lives in the two countries. Freire's approach is called deeply contextual because it learning to read and write flows from the discussion of themes of importance to adult learners drawn from their real-life experiences. Formal language study plays a secondary role to learners' conceptual development. According to Freire, teachers possess knowledge of reading and writing. Students possess knowledge of their culture. Freire has termed the banking concept of education. Students must learn what teachers teach them and not question them. They are never engaged in discussion with their educators, let alone with each other about what they learn. They are oppressed by their teachers. So it is very important that people become engaged in their process of learner and put their knowledge into action. Thank you for listening. I'm handing it off to Elena to explain findings on this topic.
So last but not least, I'm going to introduce my own part, which is how education can bring social reform, the four dimensions of critical pedagogy, and how it can be transmitted in the classroom. Um, First of all, I will begin with hegemony. As Apple defines, hegemony is an organized assemblance of meanings and practices, the central, effective, and dominant system of meanings or values and actions which are lived. So, in that notion, schools play a fundamental role in incorporating these meanings and values into the students' minds. So, cultural capital includes what the individuals already know and what they are able to do. So, elements such as family, background, language, attitude, skills, academic credential, and even qualifications are part of this capital. So, people usually have the urge to learn a language because they have the desire to adapt an imaginative identity, an identity that it can empower them within the dominant society. So here Freire comes to discuss about how the oppressed people should have a voice in the education and how education can change the whole concept of the dominant society and what we learn. So to address directly the problem of education, we think the best approach is through critical pedagogy as it has been discussed by Freire. So considering the work that it has been made by Freire, so a model of liberating education is the best approach to include the voice and agency of the oppressed in the curricular practices of education. So if we consider that dialogue is an encounter between men and mediated by the world in order to make the world, then dialogue is a necessity as Freire discussed. So it is very, very important to include the oppressed people in their own education because political action on the side of the oppressed must be pedagogical action in the authentic sense of the word and therefore action with the oppressed. So it is essential to avoid the banking model of education, and it is also very, very important to apply critical pedagogy in schools in order to create social reform. So There are four dimensions of critical literacy that we can use. First of all, is disrupting the commonplace. Second is interrogating multiple viewpoints. Third one is focusing on social and political issues, and the last one is taking action and promoting social justice. So now, by taking action, we don't really mean that someone should actively take part in civic life, but as long as they even change their reading habits and they can question the dominant underlying assumptions of the context they read, then they have already taken action. So by changing the whole notion of the dominant framework of society, then we give the oppressed people the opportunity to have access to education and have equal opportunities. So hence we are already creating social reform of the society, and we try to make it better. So the last part is the transmission in the classroom. So there are different ways to apply that critical literacy in the classroom. So some ways that we discuss is by discourse, or activities that are guided by the teacher, or even activities that students can create and develop their own material and question and conversations. To conclude, we have a video that we think that it is really good to provide food for thought, and it's a good example of what is the dominant underlying assumptions or the stereotypes that it can create for people, and even practices, lifestyles. So we hope you enjoy the whole presentation, and we really hope that we are leaving you with some good material and some good stuff to at least gain a better understanding of the whole power and language topic, and we are certainly expecting your feedback on that. Thank you.